Holy cow, it's another new tool day Tuesday. And the tool I have today, I think, is going to be pretty unique for most of you. This tool is not extremely common, at least in the industries that I've worked in, and I think it should be. If you work in an environment where you're working on a 12-volt system for like cars or motorcycles or boats, I'm sure you've ran into this. There's basically a couple scenarios that cause all of our problems. One is a short, right? That's where two wires touch each other, and typically this blows fuses, and whatever is being ran on the other end of that wire doesn't run because the short blows the fuse. There's also what we call an open. Some people miscall this a short, but an open is where the wire is broken and the device isn't powering up. So you have a blower motor that won't turn on. You've thrown the switch and everything, it's not coming on. It's not a short, or it would blow a fuse, right? It's an open. There's a broken wire or a broken plug or something like that. But then every now and then you run into these weird scenarios where you can't get the headlights to come on, but you put your multimeter on those wires and it's showing you 12 volts. Well, that's where this tool is going to help you troubleshoot that specific scenario. Now, the tool we're talking about is called a Load Pro. And a Load Pro is a really cool tool because it allows you to put a load on whatever you're working on. It allows you to put a load on that wire. It has a little button here, and when you press the button, it simulates the load, and when you release the button, it simulates a regular set of leads. And when I say leads, it's because you're supposed to take this and replace your leads on a regular multimeter. It can be any multimeter. I have a clamp here, but this also acts as a multimeter, hence multimeter. And we're going to use it in volt mode. So we're going to check the volts, and we're going to use this as our leads, and we're going to set up a scenario that might simulate maybe a corroded wire, or maybe even a relay that can't carry a load. Then we're going to show you how this guy works and how it's going to save you some time in the long run finding a problem. So here's the scenario that we're going to troubleshoot. I have a 12-volt battery off to the side right here. It's fully charged. And I have some test leads on it. And I have a ground to the chassis of the fan. And I have a positive wire to the positive wire that's supposed to power this fan up. But as you can see, the fan's not on. So your typical troubleshooting practices would be to take a voltmeter and you would put your leads on the wires and see if you have power. So we'll put the ground to the ground lead, and we'll put the positive to the positive lead. And if you look on a meter, we have 12.7 volts, so the fan is bad. Well, this is where the Load Pro will help you out, because some mechanics would probably just replace this fan. But I've got a trick. I actually have a wire that has a little bit of corrosion inside, and it's showing us some voltage, but it can't carry the load. And those are the perfect scenarios that cause mechanics issues time after time, and that's where the Load Pro will save you. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the Load Pro on the meter, and we'll show you how to troubleshoot this fan the right way. The exact same scenario. We have the very same battery, fully charged. We have the leads on the fan. The fan should be powered up. It's not, so we need to troubleshoot it. We're going to use the standard multimeter, the same multimeter we used before, but with the Load Pro leads. And we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to use this little fancy button here and simulate a load. So we're going to pull the ground off, put on our lead. Of course, if you were checking a car, you could just, clip your ground somewhere on the chassis. And then the power wire off the fan, we're going to clip the power wire onto our probe here. And if you look at the meter, 12.74 volts, the fan should spin. Again, the average guy might say the fan is bad, but that's not the case. And we're going to test the wire by putting a load on it. When we press this red button, it simulates a load. And look at the multimeter. The multimeter kind of zeroed out. It's saying we got about 3 volts on it or so. That should not be the case. Let go of the button, right back at 12.7 volts. So the corroded wire can't carry the load, and you just determined that with one button with the Load Pro. So we'll simulate a load again. Oh, look at that. It's kind of bouncing around. It is settling in around 3 volts. It's a faulty wire. Back to 12 volts. Let's fix our wire. I've replaced the corroded green wire with a known good wire, and we'll test this fan out just to prove to you guys that the fan is good. It's actually a good working fan. It came off of my 1970 Winnebago, and it literally is sitting on this workbench just to show you guys how to use a Load Pro. But if we add power, you can see the fan works just fine. So as you can see, it's not a really complicated tool, but it's extremely powerful. It's basically just simulating a load, and you just use this as your normal leads on your multimeter. When you need to simulate the load, you press the red button, and when you let go, it just goes back to acting like normal leads. It's an extremely powerful tool, and it's actually saved my rear end many times. In the boat industry, it's really, really powerful because a lot of boats have corroded wires. There's a lot of moisture, on a boat, obviously, and those wires and relays and switches corrode up, and you check it with your meter and it looks fine, but it can't carry the load. This guy will tell you that. Again, it's called a Load Pro. I'll put a link down below. I thought it was an interesting tool that I would share with you guys, and maybe it'll help one of you guys out. If you like these types of videos, please like and subscribe. Take a look at some of my other videos, and at the very least, you might be entertained.